Hey everyone, Todd here, internalarchitect.com, and in this video you're going to learn about how many stages of cancer there are. Now, I actually have written down a lot of notes for this because I had to kind of go through this to understand my own staging as I was going through it myself. And I took a lot of notes that I had written down from when I was going through treatment and when I was going through the entire process from diagnosis into my staging, so I could learn about how my treatment was going to proceed. Now, for me, I was staged really advanced, so that is why I wanted to really do this. And it's also for me to revisit and do this. You know, it's been 8.5 years since I was diagnosed. Well, 9.5 years since I was diagnosed, and 8.5 years in remission. So it's, you know, time passes, but at the end of the day, I want to be able to remember these things and then be able to share what my experience was. So I actually go through all this occasionally, about once a year, just to remember, and I just kind of compiled all my notes that I had and just wanted to go through it here, you know. So I'm going to break this down into 3 different areas. One is kind of the reason for staging. The second is how they kind of stage. And then the third one is actually the staging itself. Now, there's multiple different types of staging. I'm going to go through the staging that is done for lymphoma because this is what I know. Okay, this is how I was staged, and this is how it kind of worked for me. So with that said, there are a number of different ways to stage different cancers. At some point, I will actually go through those too because I think those are really important to cover. I just want to make sure that I get them right when I go to share those with you all. So the first part of this is the reason for staging. Now, the reason for staging is really similar for all different cancers. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to be able to say you end up moving or whatever, you want to be able to have a common language for all the healthcare providers. Like I said, if you end up moving somewhere or moving to a different state, you can go to a different oncologist and all your records will be able to be read the same by each oncologist, and it's an easier way to converse about it for your oncologist to talk to other oncologists about also. So it's, you know, it's a common language for all oncologists to speak, so to say. And next, it helps guide your treatment. So whatever happens next is how, through this whole staging thing, where you're staged will help determine the type of treatment that you're going to need to have. You know, the third thing is that it helps estimate your prognosis. So if you are staged less advanced, you will have a better prognosis of beating the cancer. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be beat, but your prognosis is better. So it helps estimate a lot of the prognosis issues that go along with cancer. 4 is allows a comparison of results over time. So if it allows the doctors to see how you are doing over that period of time. So when you first start out in your treatment, you know, and then over the course of 6 months, or even 3 months and 6 months and 9 months and a year, 2 years, 5 years, they're able to kind of see kind of the prognosis over the time. And that's really the main reasons for all the staging and why they stage, because it takes a little bit more time to see kind of the end result that comes along after going through all the staging and all the treatment and everything that happens for you. So next is the how. So how do they stage you, right? This is kind of a big question, and kind of you want to understand a little bit more of like the procedures and the things that you have to go through in order to be staged. Well, first it starts off with physical examinations. You know, they're going to take a look at you. They're going to see what kind of things are going on. They're going to see if you have any bumps. You know, I had an enlarged lymph node in my armpit. Some people get them in their neck. Some people get them all over their body. You know, it just depends on where the abnormal cells will start to grow and where they start to multiply and create that tumor. So it all kind of depends on where it's at. For me, it was in my armpit. I had a good, over a golf, probably bigger than a golf ball size lymph node removed out of my armpit. That was kind of the one that was like, okay, this is how they do it. So part of the physical examination, I didn't even know it when I went in to figure it out when I went to the emergency room, because I didn't even feel it. I didn't even know, but you could see it. And yeah, well, that was the start of that. So certain scans, like CT scans, PET scans, bone marrow biopsies are also used to help determine how you're staged. The CT scans and the PET scans will show where everything's at, where the cancer's at, especially the PET scans. You'll be able to see the scan image itself lights up like a Christmas tree if it's all over, and like mine, it lit up all over the place. And in fact, I'll add my scan to it so you can see what it looks like here. So yeah, and then bone marrow biopsy will also help determine where it spread at that point also. And then back to the pathology and surgery reports that come back from what it is and the biopsies that you have had and the surgeries that you have. So for me, a liver biopsy and the lymph node removal were the two ways that I was diagnosed. And yeah, that's how that little bit happened. And so the third part of this is the actual staging. So you go through all these tests, you go through everything, and they're able to, this is part of the common language in the staging to help all healthcare practitioners determine where you are at in your disease. So the stage 1 is one lymph node area, like in your neck or in your armpit. For me, it was all over my body. So if you have one lymph node that just like say in your neck, it's a little bit inflamed, but it doesn't go anywhere else, and that's your stage 1. Stage 2 is 2 or more lymph node areas on the same side of the diaphragm, either all above the diaphragm or all below the diaphragm. So it all kind of depends there where it all sits, Stage 3 is multiple lymph nodes on both sides of the diaphragm. So for me, I was definitely at least a stage 3 because I had multiple lymph nodes on both sides of the diaphragm. Stage 4, it spread beyond the lymphatic system like bone marrow or liver. It can go to other areas, but mostly it'll stick to your bone marrow and your liver. And then on top of all these 4 stages here, there are 2 different aspects to it, right? There's your, classifications of each stage, and that's A and B. A means you're asymptomatic, which means you don't show any of the signs that kind of go along with cancer. And B means that there are symptoms that come along with it. One like fevers, night sweats, and a big one is a loss of weight, and it's usually about 10% or more of your own body weight is what you lose. Now B means that it's a lot more widespread and a lot more difficult to treat, but once they're able to determine the staging, like in my case, I was staged 4B. I had multiple lymph nodes up and down all over my chest and groin and everything. I had affected lymph nodes above and below my diaphragm. It had gotten into my bone marrow, and it had gotten into my liver. And the liver is what set off the initial figuring this whole thing out for me because of what felt like cramps. That's kind of how the staging works, and that's kind of how it all progresses. And if you're able to catch it earlier, your prognosis is even better. Once you kind of get into the later stages and the 4 and the 4Bs, that's when it becomes a little bit more difficult. And then the next course of action and treatment can go into an autologous stem cell transplant, which is what I ended up having. So that's kind of it in a breakdown for lymphoma. There's some similarities with other cancers, at least with like the discussion and the common language for doctors and oncologists to talk about. Otherwise, there's another system that oncologists use to determine tumor sizes and everything else, and I'll get into that in another video. But yeah, that's it for lymphoma. Pretty straightforward, really. Once you kind of, obviously when you're in the middle of it and you're going through it, then you can kind of have this better understanding of how this all works. So, yeah, if you have any questions, hit me in the comment section below. Give me a thumbs up and a like, and, please subscribe to the channel and let me know with your responses and your comments of things that you think or things that you want me to hit on also. So, just want to say thank you again, and I really appreciate your time and your energy. And yeah, again, thank you, and I will see you on the next video.